Uh, Good evening. I think we are live. Maybe we can also, you can also send us a sign if you see us live and if it working. I will slowly introduce to this complicated, as usual, schedule of Savvy Contemporary Invocations event. And I will do that by, of course, welcoming all of you. So good evening, dear Savis. I think they are there, dear friends, dear comrades, but also good morning and good night or good afternoon, dear close and distant people, dear guests, speakers and participants, dear listeners and ears sitting under different skies and across latitudes and longitudes. In COVID-19 times, where physicality is not ordinarily allowed, we are stretching our three-dimensionality and experimenting with the possibility of inhabiting other spaces, ones that are not simply virtual. We are maybe a little bit fed up with that, but that grapple with the prospect of creating a new, and I would say even an old, horizon of togetherness. A togetherness that is not simply a being sitting alone with others under the same roofs, but a being connected across spaces and times with our past and our futures, with the living voices of the ancestors, but also the present energies and forces of those human and more than human entities that are entangled to us. And of course, I use the word entangled to make reference to the quantum entanglement with the noosphere and the potential of our telepathic consciousness too. All of us sitting together here, I think, you still don't see who is sitting here, but you will find it out very soon. I think we all believe in the possibility of transmission of information and of affects from one person to another one, even without using any known human sensory channels or physical interaction. So tonight, or more simply, to relativize our space-time coordinates now and simultaneously here and there, we're trying to channel the voices and the researches of people that inspired the discussions, the feeling, and the thinking around our current show at Savvy Contemporary. I'm sitting here in the studio of the Limits of Perception Lab, together with Ivana Franke, an artist I'm working with since circa 10 years at least. And who is preoccupied with renegotiating our understanding of spatial categories. Can you give me a filter, Kelly?
Yes.
And the way our consciousness perceives them. I'm also sitting with my colleague and sister, Kelly Krugman. Thank you, Kelly.
Hello,
Make it
hello.
more performative. No, this is to one that is a little bit transparent. Let's see. Vediamo. No, that's too much. So just look for one. Kelly, who did magic to make this lab materializing and brought the best energies, curating this whole madness with me. And Israel Lopez, who's a little bit busy with the streaming and who is working with Ivana, but is also the artist behind our satellite event, Dreamscape #1, an installation for sensorially enhanced dreaming and a composition for closed eyes. And not here with us, but in the same mental space is also another person, an inspiring colleague and friend, Arlette Ndakoze, core team member of Savvy, whose investigation since several years is looking on artistic and intellectual movement in Rwanda, but also in other African countries, researching within philosophical disciplines, yes, literature and literature context. So Ivana will navigate us later in the spaces of her investigation. But as one of the curators of the project, I would like to suggest a brief statement about the framework of this project and the aims of this laboratory. So this lab is an hybrid of an artist studio and a scientific lab. The limits of perception lab, yeah. It uses multidisciplinary methodologies to study experience and as a means of knowledge disruption and production. The project serves as an experimental phase of a longer-term platform of investigation of perceptual limits as potential sites of social transformation. This materialization of the open lab at Xavi focuses in particular on perception, yes, and imagination of extra dimensions. And it made Xavi become a zone to provide experience in which to question the habitual ways of seeing and knowing in three-dimensional environments. So the project Okay. So the project connects and draws upon Xavi Contemporary's 2019 and 2020 program that is called The Invention of Science, and its longer-term explorations to challenge the frailties and the fallacies of objective scientific knowledge. So modern science, we at least think and share this thought in this room, has been imposing itself as a form of universal knowledge, promoting the uniqueness of the West and its superiority, and appropriating the monopoly of a distinction between what is true and what is false. So inspired, I mean, many are the figures, intellectuals, thinkers, and also practitioners that inspired our thinking on our program at Xavi. But among them, I would like to connect to the writings and the cogitations of thinkers like Sylvia Wynter, whose work is an attempt to elucidate the development, but even more the maintenance of this colonial modernity and the modern man, and the ones of Bonaventura de Sousa Santos, especially is thinking about ecologies of knowledges. And accompanied by these thinkers at Xavi, we ponder Western modernity as a socio-political paradigm, and we try to address this epistemic violence that the West has been perpetrating against other forms of knowledges. So from a feminist and decolonial perspective, we are in fact articulating or interested in articulating a critique on the role of and on the authority of modern science in the contemporary society, and to explore the pretension of objectivity, rationality, and truth of science. But to go back to Ivana's laboratory and to try to wrap it up also, I would say the most interesting thing for me is exactly that Ivana and this work is preoccupied to experiment the potential of epistemological ruptures, these ruptures that are breaking with normal sciences. And the lab, in fact, is trying to evoke experiences that are challenging existing common modes of knowledge. And in this case now, since she joined Xavi and the laboratory became a living of Xavi, I think the intention of the lab is also to question the hegemonic assertions of the Enlightenment ideals of the liberal white male subjects, and crack with preconceived idea of realities, to then taking it to other dimensions that are decisively of the political otherwise, the imaginary and the cosmic. So to try also to guide you through our schedule and what is going to happen tonight in under the solstice of the summer solstice, let me try to do it. So with a polyphony of guests and participants, today in the longest and most luminous day of the year, that is the day of the summer solstice, a very particular one also, because you probably are all aware of the fact that in the past hours in more southern latitudes than our in Berlin, a rare solstice solar eclipse has happened and is still happening. And also in a year 2020 that is revealing itself to be a very disruptive and peculiar one. I would like to have a filter.
Yes, we're trying to find one.
We will not enact.
What shall we do?
We will not only enact a rite, a ritual of passage to a new season and a cyclic cosmic constellation, but we will also try at least to address these limits of Western scientific assumptions about consciousness. Also engaging with the spatio-temporal shift from Newtonian to theoretical particle physics, but also engaging with ancient traditional understanding of time and life and artistic visionarity. So we will do that by talking with the most engaged and renowned scientists, as physicist Lisa Randall, philosopher of the mind and consciousness studies Sangeetha Menon, inspiring artists as Monica Narula from Raqs Media Collective, Elisabeth Tambwe, Tomas Saraceno, but also shamans as our amazing Taita, Martín, Jamioy, Juajibio, politically engaged neuroscientists as well as Ida Momennejad, since long time friend of us, and the historian of science, Juan-Andres Leon, that is actually here with us as well, and curator Sunčica Ostojić, who knows the work of Ivana since decades. So I'm gonna leave it here because it's just impossible to try to explain online how the work of Ivana unfolds. It's a really very embodied experience, so it's actually unuseful to just use words. And anyway, I would need a couple of hours or days. So I will just pass it to the speakers, some of them very close to Ivana, some others maybe feeling a little bit disoriented yet. But before ending, I feel like dedicating Ivana, but also all the women involved in this project and in this meeting, an amazing poem by poetess and essayist Adrienne Rich, a poem entitled Planetarium. That is actually an invocation again and a forceful articulation of Adrienne Rich's view in regard to female position in society, and that complains about the fact that women's capacities and achievements are not acknowledged. She was writing time before, but we cannot say that we are in such a better situation. And so how much the achievements of women most of the times are belittled and underestimated. In fact, the poem is inspired on the figure of the astronomer Caroline Herschel, who was sister of another distinguished astronomer, and that of course overshadowed her achievements and her hard work. So yeah, this should serve as a statement for all women and non-men. Planetarium. A woman in the shape of a monster in the shape of a woman. The skies are full of them. A woman in the snow, among the clocks and instruments, or measuring the ground with poles. In her 98 years to discover 8 comets. She, whom the moon ruled like us, levitating into the night sky, riding the polished lenses, galaxies of women, there doing penance for impetuousness, ribs chilled in those spaces of the mind. And I, virile, precise, and absolutely certain, from the mad webs of Uranusborg, encountering the nova, every impulse of light exploding, from the core as life flies out of us. Fico whispering at last, let me not seem to have lived in vain. What we see, and seen is changing. The light that shrivels a mountain and leaves a man alive, heartbeat of the pulsar, heart sweating through my body. The radio impulse pouring in from Taurus. I am bombarded, yet I stand. I've been standing all my life in the direct path of the battery of signals, the most accurately transmitted, most untranslatable language in the universe. I am a galactic cloud, so deep, so involuted that a light wave could take 15 years to travel through me, and has taken. I am an instrument in the shape of a woman, trying to translate pulsations into images for the relief of the body and the reconstruction of the mind. So that was it, and I think it's really describing a lot, for me at least, the work of Ivana.